We don't stop. How did I get this part? How did I learn for so long?
Great,
And
Deon. Oh, I see
we
the
belong to be
afternoise.
here. Be here. We
Hey,
belong
look
to
at
be
this.
here.
Oh my gosh.
Learn for so long and harder in every song.
I am loving this.
I was learn to be here, be here, be here. I was learn to be here, be here,
Yes.
be here.
I am loving this intro. This is awesome. Wow. Wow. Thank you, everyone.
What's up? Sorry about that.
Deon, this is awesome. I've never seen an intro like that. Like
Oh yeah,
it's like
that's
you're getting ready for a game, right? Get
that's my
hype.
Matali, and the person that was rapping that and singing that is Jay Reed. He's from my hometown. He's out in Cali right now, and he he legit. I love him.
I love that. I am so excited to have this conversation. So we have people joining in right now. Hey everyone. So like I told you, Deon, and I know we were talking before this live, people are ready for this conversation.
Yeah,
And I know you're ready for this conversation. I'm ready for this conversation. I mean, this is just, we're here for it, right?
I agree. I agree. And let me see if I can get right now.
Yes.
How does that work?
Seriously,
Is that better?
I've never had someone like come on and they're dancing. I love it.
Just that's my energy. You know what I mean? And I want to share that same energy. Just being real.
Yes, yes,
Is that your dog in the back?
yes. My dog is right here. Let me see if I could show you guys. This is Misha. Can you see her? Hey, Misha.
Oh,
She's my little German Shepherd, even though she's not little.
okay, I got you.
So Deon, listen, this is amazing. So those of you out there who don't know, I met Deon through a mutual colleague with no disability. And I don't know if you knew, Deon, I am actually doing an interview with Dean on Friday. So we're going
No,
to talk, we're going to talk about his story, no disability, all that good stuff. And so those of you who don't know me, I am not dyslexic, but I'm an educator and I'm passionate about changing, the narrative. And I've done so many of these interviews, but I have never interviewed a Black male dyslexic. And I am just like, you know how I feel about this. Like, I'm ready for us to talk about this, for you to share your story, for you to, anyone that's listening to this now or later, they can come back and say, wow, like I can connect with that. Or like, that sounds like my story, wow, he accomplished big things. And it's so important to hear these stories.
I agree because um, I don't want anybody else to go through what I went through. So it's my time to pass on that knowledge to anybody that's dyslexic. But I am gonna aim for a certain crowd. Is my Black people, these young Black African males. I mean, I can only relate to it, and it's gonna only come from the heart.
Yes. Yeah. So let's get started because your story you shared with me and I want to hear it again. And I feel like far too often we hear this in the Black community and I just feel like we need to talk about it. So I know you were one of 8, right? Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. So you were one of 8, grew up in Detroit. Your mom passed away. You were raised by your grandmother. Like, tell us a little bit about like what your life was like and like what drove you to football and everything. I mean, I know this is like your whole story, but like give it to us. I'm really interested in hearing this. And so were they.
So I'm from Detroit, Michigan, Inkster, Michigan as well. Born and raised, a beautiful family of 8, raised by my mom and my grandma. Beautiful people, beautiful souls. And to be honest, we lived in poverty. To be real, it was hard growing up. It was challenging, not only in house, but also in school. And that's why I think we're here today is because to pass on the knowledge about school.
Right.
I I struggled in elementary, I struggled in middle school, I struggled in high school. But starting at elementary, I always knew I had a learning disability. I
Something was
always,
off, right?
yeah,
You just knew
right,
something wasn't right.
right. And at this time is like I'm also giving what I see, if that makes if you understand. I'm trying. And I was kind of getting labeled as the bad kid so early on, which
Right.
I end up learning to fit in with bad people. Like, not bad people,
Right.
but do bad kid things when I feel like I'm being pushed in that area. So, to be honest with you, um, I started to play with some of the some of these tools that I have going on in my head. Like, how can I learn? How can I, let me stand up so I can speak a little bit clearer. So, in elementary, I felt like something was off, but I didn't know how to explain it because I couldn't really talk well. I couldn't connect things together, and I struggled. But I also watched my grandma struggle as well. And as I watched her struggle, I knew that I was also adding on to that struggle because she's coming up to the school, and I'm getting in trouble. And honestly, I don't think it was that bad because the trouble that I'm doing is like I'm trying to answer these questions and the class laugh, and then the teacher get mad, right? So it's like, how can I be myself and also learn? And I
Right.
feel like I'm getting pushed to the back, right? So at this time in elementary, I'm seeing my grandma going back and forth, getting it, you know what I mean, coming problems at home, problems in school. And at this time, like, I didn't know how to handle that. So I
Right.
started doing bad behavior things. When I was a kid, I pulled a fire alarm. I mean, I skipped school early. I skipped school so early, and it was kind of weird because I planned the whole thing out, but I knew what I was doing. So when
Mm-hmm.
I skipped school, I crossed the street, little kid, and doing these things, I got in a lot of trouble. So
Right.
once I skipped school, I came back. Once I skipped school, I came back home, and I came back home super early, and my door was locked. So I went across the street and to my neighbor house, and he was asking me, "Why are you home so early?" And I didn't know how to tell time. I didn't know these
Wow.
things,
Okay.
right? I didn't know how to tell time, and I made up a story and said I got kidnapped. And it
Oh
was
my.
kind of one of the best, yeah, oh yeah, it was one of the best stories ever where it had the police all involved. Literally had
Wow.
everybody there. And at the end of the day, to get to the point is, I told such a good story that I had everybody believe in me, and then the truth came out. I was only looking for attention because I
Yeah.
saw my teachers treating everybody else different than how I was being treated. So
Right.
that also frustrated me. So when I got in middle school, that's when I realized I didn't want to add on to my grandma's stress, and I can't keep putting this stress on her. So I had promised myself, like, all right, I promised myself to always. This semester I had promised myself to give it my all without getting suspended.
Okay.
And when I went through that semester and was trying, I was really giving my whole effort until parent teacher conference came up. And it was kind of weird because I felt in my mind that I was doing everything possible, and I wasn't.
Right.
And then I heard I wasn't. So that caused more stress on my grandma. I
Right.
mean, she she really was so disappointed because she heard these teachers saying, Deon is a good kid, but he can't stay focused.
Right.
He can't behave. He's the class clown.
Right.
So I started feeling like the class clown. I felt like I was in a lose-lose situation.
Exactly.
So going back to school in middle school, I literally was like, all right, if I'm getting in trouble in school and I'm putting this stress on myself and I'm being blamed, getting a label put on me as the the misbehaved child, it's like,
Right.
how can I win? I just started acting up. I can't read. I can't spell. I'm struggling with math. I don't know who I am. And I'm
Yeah.
also adding on.
And you know, I was going to say, and you need help. And, you know, I'm listening to this and I have a question. What, your teachers, were they mostly white? Were they black?
Yes. A lot of my teachers was white.
So I want to comment on that for a second. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm seeing the comments in the chat, and we as an American society need to understand, you know, and I think we do, but it's a matter of how we can change this. Most teachers in this country are white women, right? And so we have to look at the statistics of most of the teachers. I think it was in 2017 or 18, 87% of the teachers were white women. So you have to then look at who you are as a white woman in society teaching kids of color. You have to look at your implicit biases. You have to look at the way that you are connecting with these kids that culturally you didn't grow up that way. So if you, like you said, you were called the class clown, you were called all these things, you know, you weren't getting the attention you needed. Well, you probably assumed you really weren't worth their time. So you were doing things like creating the stories and, hey, pay attention to me. And that's a cry for help right there. So, I mean, it's the fact that, like, this is why I'm so passionate hearing this story, because I've seen that as a Black educator when I was in public school, and you see these Black boys or these brown boys that are, they want to go up to the principal's office and pull the fire alarm or bring in drugs or whatever it is, because they're avoiding something that they're not getting the support for what they need. And I just had to comment on that, because I'm hearing this and I'm just like, I'm wondering if you had Black teachers or if you had white teachers, and that kind of, you know, that speaks volumes too.
Right. And it was mostly a mix, but it was majority white.
Right.
But it's like, okay, I end up that year in middle school, my 6th grade year, I had promised myself I wasn't going to get in trouble. But after hearing all them things, it's like, I can't even get a good compliment at parent-teacher conference. It's like, all right, well, I'm going to show out. So that's what I did. And I ended up getting kicked out of school
Like
for good.
suspended? Like
Suspended,
expelled?
expelled.
Okay.
And I ended up going to live with my mom in Detroit. And me and my mom didn't always look eye to eye, even though she was an amazing woman. It was my behavior. I was going in and out and getting kicked out. And we lived in poverty. So it's like, we already dealing with enough.
Yeah.
So I then got expelled out of Detroit schools and went back to Inkster to live with my grandma.
So you're just getting pushed around, you know, your confidence is still like not good. You're like, you know, I'm the problem, when really someone had commented, what is it? Black male educators around, oh, hold on. Oh, someone just, thank you for the badge. I forgot to tell everyone my badges are on. So if you're loving this conversation, please donate. What did that say? Male educators around dyslexia intervention, because great teachers often still can't reach dyslexic students. Okay, so yeah, and I can touch on that. And this is why I'm so passionate, because I started my career in a private dyslexic school. So I didn't hit the ground running in public school, like what's structured, you know, literacy, what's structured science reading, what is dyslexia? Like I knew what all that stuff was. And so you are absolutely right. It is a type of, it's an approach to teach children with this, you know, how your brain's wired. And so if you constantly have teachers that are just like, oh, Deon's just good kid, but, you know, it probably was always a but, and that just didn't make you feel good, and you're getting bounced around. And what about your siblings? Like, did they have any issues in school? I mean, I'm sure your mom and your grandma had their hands full. Yeah,
they did, but I mean, I can only speak for myself, because it's my view, and it's like they were smart. My brothers and sisters are very smart, very intelligent.
Well, so were you.
Yeah, most definitely. But at this time,
you didn't feel it.
I didn't feel it, because I didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew about dyslexic at this time, and it's like, that is really powerful to have, knowledge to have. So once I got into 8th grade, that's when I started. 7th grade, I kind of like picked it up a little bit. Then I started playing football in 8th grade.
Okay, so this is where football comes in.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So did football kind of like unlock this potential? Because I know you have a lot of energy too, but I mean, did you feel? I'm assuming you felt real confident on the field.
I did. Um, it's an amazing story because it's also a trauma in this story in these examples that I'm going to give you. We had an amazing quarterback who name is Alan Willis, and he's from my hometown, and everybody knew about him. Literally, he was that good, that talented. He had a great spirit, a big heart, but he was really amazing. I'm talking about he was so fast. He also was so well known in eighth grade. They was trying to move him up to varsity, just
Oh,
prepping him.
wow. Okay.
So, um, I got me playing tight end. I got my boy Orlando playing receiver, and then we got Kevin, aka Pint. And I mean, Kevin can really hit. So you got a dynamic squad right here, and we all from Inkster, Michigan, trying to make a living. But at the
Right.
same time, I'm still trying to learn the streets too because I got to be able to live, survive, and I'm noticing my grandma going through all these things, and we don't have money, so that that involved a lot as well. But um, we end up going undefeated. Kevin was dominating. Allen was just dropping the ball off to Orlando catching it. You got me across the middle, just loving the game. Um, we end up finishing that season undefeated, and Allen and Kevin, they was closer. They was a closer than me and Orlando. Me and Orlando staying together. But Allen was end up going over to the high school for track because that's
Okay.
what they like to do. Kevin and Allen that's how fast and amazing they was. And Allen ended up getting hit by a train.
Like, is he still alive
No,
or?
he ended up dying.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah,
How did that
and
impact you? How did that impact, your mindset and all that?
it was tough because me and Orlando, we didn't want to run track. You get to pick two options when football season was over.
Right.
And we was trying to learn some of the street stuff to make money. And we got to get a call on the Nextel, the old Nextel church.
Yeah.
And Kevin, I ended up getting a call, church, and saying Allen is dead and got hit by a train. So me and Orlando took off and we were running, and I see the scenery is all taped off, yellow, and um, it was unfortunate that Allen went back to go grab a shirt or whatever the case may be, and the impact of the train sucked him back in.
Oh, wow.
And all my life, I felt like I blamed myself, and then I realized I wasn't even there. Kevin was there. So after Kevin, after all that whole thing, after all that went down, I end up going to play football, and I wound up going to ninth grade, and I never heard from Kevin again. I never heard. Orlando went to go play basketball. So at this point, I don't have no understanding of how grief work. I was just blaming myself, and I played quarterback. That that season, I went undefeated, and I remember going home crying,
Mm.
literally crying, and I remember my grandma coming in the room, and I'm just, Granny, it's just so mad. And I'm like, I ain't never playing football again. I
Mm.
ain't never playing football again. So I'm like, I'm going to go play basketball. And my grandma looked at me and said, I don't care what you do, as long as you go to school and you go to church. And I always listen to my grandma. And I end up playing basketball. And I got really good at it. Nobody knew that the reason why I stopped playing football.
Mm. So what brought you back to football?
That's a great question. I end up getting really good at basketball, and just developing my skills where I end up I was going to the gym early in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and I was waiting for the athletic director, Greg Carter, who's going down in the Hall of Fame, in the coaching Hall of Fame, and I was waiting for him to bring me a basketball. Then you got Devin Gardner, who's a amazing, phenomenal athlete, and I'm talking about he played at Michigan.
Okay.
He's in it. I mean, he played in NFL. That's how good he is. And I remember just not having a basketball, and Coach Ali was he was playing catch with Coach Ali, and Coach Ali is his quarterback coach. So Devin was throwing the ball really hard to him, and Coach Ali was like, "Deon, come catch this football." I'm like, "Nah, man, I don't play catch no more. I don't play football no more." And he's like, "Come on, man, come play. I look out for you, don't you?" He is a security guard as well. He's like,
Okay.
when it's a hard sweep, don't I look out for you and I give you a heads up, and don't I take care of you? Come catch these footballs. So I end up catching the football, Devin launching it really good. And I talked to some of my mentors Patrick Wembley, who's the mayor of Inkster, my grandma, Coach Carter, and they both all was kind of in my head about, hey, go play football, give it an opportunity, give it a chance. And that year, I dominated.
That's awesome. That really is. And and I'm reading these comments too. I don't know who this last comment is. I'm assuming he's your friend.
Which one? I'm sorry, I gotta get some water.
It says, "I'm so J.R. Reed," or I'm so J. Reed. I can't even read Instagram.
So no, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's Jay Reed. Yeah, that's Jay Reed. That's the song who I was playing with.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is just, I love this. Deon, I gotta ask you, because I want to get. I mean, this story is amazing too. I mean, really. But I want to ask you about, when were you diagnosed? Because I think that's a critical thing for the audience to hear too.
And it's right, and it plays a big part into my life. I was diagnosed at 28.
Okay, so it wasn't like you were in 8th grade.
No.
Or you were in 9th grade. This was like you were a grown man getting this diagnosis. How did you get diagnosed at that point? Because usually when you're an adult, it's like you take the initiative to say something's just not right.
You're right. So like, I was always frustrated, and I had to figure out in high school how to get by and how to stay on the team. And I got my grandma pushing me to go to school. I got all these mentors, teachers, but I end up getting this scholarship. I end up getting all these scholarship offers. And when I got diagnosed at 28, I was just been frustrated because it affected throughout high school as well as college.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's a different experience. It was a different experience for me. A totally different experience. Even in college, I went and got help with my disability teacher, and sweet woman, she was amazing, but I still wasn't there. I still didn't know. I still didn't get was not told that I was dyslexic. So when I was diagnosed, it changed my whole entire life. It calmed me down. It made me realize that I needed to really get a grasp of this.
Well, and it also, it's because I can speak from my own personal experience. I told you this, I was diagnosed with ADHD my senior year of college, and I struggled in school as well. And for me, and I think it's because we're both Black, I was seen as I was called the social butterfly. It wasn't the class clown, it was the social butterfly. And I will never forget, my 8th grade social studies teacher told my parents at a parent-teacher conference that I could talk to a corpse. That's how much I talked. That's how much I was just all over the place. And I never, like, similar to you, like, I was frustrated. I had low self-esteem. Like, I thought I was stupid, and I look today, I have, and not saying having degrees is a measure of intelligence, but like, I've always loved school, but I couldn't figure it out. And I did probably similar to you. I did awful on my SATs. Like, I didn't know where my future was going. I mean, I did go to college. I ran track, as we talked about. That paid the bills. But when I got that diagnosis, it was like, wow, this is freeing. Like now I know what's going on. Now I can look and research and probably similar to you, like what were the signs? Oh, I do that. Oh, how can I support myself? How can you know what I mean? Like, so I can
So,
understand it being like, whew, the weight is lifted off of you, but then now you need to relearn who you are with this label.
and that also bring me into, like, I had to go to therapy.
Yes.
Literally, I had to go to therapy, and I was detoxing because I ended up losing my mom and my grandma. And this was the time during me leaving the NFL and coming back. I mean, leaving the NFL, finding out my grandma passed, and not having that soul support.
Right.
And um, I was detoxing from therapy, and my therapist was teaching me like, hey, what do you want out of life? What do you need? And at that time, I like didn't know how to answer.
Right.
I didn't know who I was because I felt like I was doing everything, and I was doing everything for my grandma and to prove a point that I wasn't stupid, that I wasn't dumb, and I can go get a degree. And everything has been a chip on my shoulder, literally, like trying to fight to be be somebody and fit in. And I felt so alone before I knew I was dyslexic.
Right. And the thing is that you're not alone, you know. And I think here's the other thing. So I think there are two things in the Black community. First of all, we aren't. I don't want to. I want to be careful with how I word it, but I don't want to say we're not as educated. I think part of it is we get put in a system, you know. So like we see, oh well, that's just Deon acting up, you know. He pulled the fire alarm. He's probably got an emotional disability, or he's probably, you know, he's an angry child. And so it's this perpetuating like trope, if you will. And then you have the angry Black mom that's like, stop labeling my child, like, oh, you know. And then they get mad at us, you know, you're doing it again. And it's this constant cycle of, well, I don't want my child labeled because then they're going to be put in special ed, or they're going to be treated a sort of way, and they're going to be put in the system, and they're going to end up in jail. So it's like all that stuff. But what we need to do is understand what dyslexia looks like in the Black community, how we can support each other in the community itself. Because let's be honest here, like, there's probably someone in your family that has dyslexia. I don't know if it was your grandma, if it was your father, it was your mother, but this is something, you know. And there are different types of dyslexia. There's definitely the kind of dyslexia that's trauma dyslexia that can come later in life, but you're talking about this was like back from elementary school, which means this was how you were born. This is how your brain's wired. So this just didn't come out of anywhere. But I just feel like I've heard so many stories and they're all the same, but it's different in the BIPOC community, especially in the Black community, where it's just not talked about, it's not looked at, it's a behavior issue. And, you know, I get on this platform as a Black educator because this is a whitewashed learning disability. It's this disability that's supposed to be okay for middle class white people. They can put their kids in these private schools, pay for these tutors that are $100+, all of that. And I've lived it, you know, like I'm one of those tutors, you know. I worked in those private schools where I was the first Black teacher there, and I'm like, where are the kids of color? Like, is this just a white disability? And it's not. And that's exactly, you know, why we're having this conversation. And it's, you know,
And I and
it's critical.
it is because I learn from examples.
Yes.
I had to step up and be a example. And I didn't get my name in college for playing football. I was volunteering. I was doing the Special Olympics. I was doing all these things to build myself and build my character. And with the school piece, it was like I struggled with that piece, and nobody could help me understand it. And it also made me angry and frustrated. And that's why I can lead us into getting this understanding of what dyslexia is. I
Yes.
read as many books as I can, but I'm still going to be dyslexic. I can pound and pound, but that's just the way my brain works.
Yes.
And it's a
Exactly.
misunderstanding.
No, exactly. So I want to, because I do feel like that this could be a part two. I don't know how you feel about this,
Yeah.
Deon, but I feel like we could totally do a part two. But I want you to give our audience a nugget of, like, you know, tips before we end. Okay. So I want you to talk to the Black young males out there? Like, what advice can you give them? You know, like, talk to you when you were 10, when you were 12. Like, who is this young Black male or boy? Like, what advice can you give them?
Instead of giving advice, I can give you an example of me talking to myself as a kid.
I'm listening. It's starting to rain. I got to go inside.
I'm sorry. And I honestly deeply would tell myself, I did it. I beat the odds. I I overcame some of these barrels that's going on around in the world, and that's mislabeled. And if I could tell another African American, a young Black man, or anybody that's dyslexic, is to be able to stand up for yourself and embrace who you are.
Exactly. No, I hear that. And I feel like, given your story, given where you've been, the trauma, the tragedy, the ups, the downs, I mean, I feel like anyone who's re-listening to this, and if you're listening to this on my YouTube channel months later, like, that's powerful information, because I feel like you said, you learn from examples. So if you didn't have those examples, you didn't really know what your life was going to look like. And so I feel like it's so important for you to share that advice, so young boys out there can say, while they're in special ed, like, I can be something. This isn't the end all be all. I don't have to act out and have negative behaviors to get attention. But we also need to change the system because it's broken.
Exactly.
So it's
and the way the teachers teach the kids, because if the teachers are not knowledge, then how do they help kids that's dyslexic? Because my family couldn't afford that money to take me to dyslexic school or put me in a certain type of school, and that affected my whole entire life.
Well, and see, that's the thing. So someone just asked what my YouTube channel is. So my YouTube channel is called Think Dyslexia Network. I just put it in the chat box. So the purpose of that channel is, I only keep 4 IGTVs on this platform. I have about 50 videos on my YouTube channel, and it's me interviewing people with their stories. So I interviewed a Chinese British gentleman who's a lawyer. He told his story. A woman from Oman, from Egypt. I'm trying to think of other backgrounds. Ghana, Kenya. This is a global issue. It's not just Americans, Nigerians. I mean, this is all over the world. And so I've also interviewed professionals who have worked with dyslexics, neuropsychologists who can diagnose, developmental behavioral pediatricians. I mean, there's so many resources on this, I was about to say Netflix, on this YouTube channel that I want everyone to have. It's free. I mean, I put this out here because I'm very passionate, and Think Dyslexia's mission, as I'm building this brand and this business, is really to get to the root cause. And the root cause is at the university level. And the universities need to understand the science of reading. They need to understand what dyslexia is, and they need to train their teachers to know what to do. So once they get that diploma and cross that stage and start in any school, whether it's public, private, rural, urban, whatever, they understand. I'm not saying they need to be dyslexia experts, but at least if they're teaching kindergarten, first grade, they have those early indicators to know. So that's my passion, because hearing these stories, I'm like, we've got to change this narrative. I mean, we could talk about stories forever, but we have to do something to make a change.
Right.
So
I agree.
That's where I stand. But Deon, listen, I am so grateful that we have met and had this conversation, and I am totally open for us doing a part 2, 3, 4, whatever it is that we can, as a team, get our faces, get our message, get this work out there, because we're passionate about it.
I agree. And Dr. Lauren, thank you so much for this opportunity, because it means so much to be able to help these young kids and be able to help the next generation and these teachers and just the educators, because we all teach. And if you don't see it, then we have to reteach and relearn again.
Definitely. Definitely. Deon, thank you so much. And everyone who tuned in and stayed on, thank you. And for the badges donated, this was awesome.
Thank you so much.
I'll talk to you soon, Deon.
All right, cool.